In a world that's always pushing these complex, high-tech solutions, what if the most powerful fix for our modern problems is also the simplest one? Today, we're going to dig into an idea from our source material that points to just one thing: plain old pure water. So, does this sound familiar at all? That feeling of just walking through your day in a total brain fog? Or maybe you've got this nagging headache you can't shake, or just you can't seem to focus? Well, you are definitely not alone. Our source suggests that these feelings aren't necessarily a sign you need a more complicated solution, but maybe a much, much simpler one. And this is where we run into a really weird paradox, right? We've got this massive industry of drinks, all designed to make us feel sharper, more focused, more energized, and yet so many of us are walking around with the classic symptoms of dehydration. It's a strange disconnect when you really stop and think about it. Okay, so if all our modern, sophisticated drinks aren't really the answer, where do we even look? Well, the source material we're looking at points us way back, over a century ago, to a surprisingly simple, kind of old-fashioned idea. This idea was really championed by a 19th century health reformer named Ellen White. And for her, water wasn't just something to, quench your thirst. No, she saw it as this incredibly powerful, almost sacred tool for cleansing the body and totally restoring the mind. But was this just some nice, old-fashioned wisdom, or is there actually science to back it up? Let's dive into the biology of why this simple liquid has such a huge effect on us. I want you to just think about this number for a second. 75%. That's roughly how much of your brain is made of water. It's not just like a minor component. It's the main ingredient. And when that main ingredient runs low, things really start to go sideways. So get this. When you start to feel thirsty, that's not the beginning of the problem. That's actually an emergency signal that this whole chain reaction is already happening. Your brain cells are literally shrinking. Your cortisol, that's your stress hormone, it starts to spike, and then bam, you're more irritable, your memory gets fuzzy, and your attention span just tanks. Your body is basically in a state of low-key biological crisis. And this is where the history and the science just clicked together perfectly. Long before we had MRIs that could show us shrinking neurons, Ellen White was seeing the effects firsthand. Using the language of her day, she talked about how thick, impure blood from not drinking enough water led directly to a heavy, sluggish mind. She basically figured out the link between hydration and clear thinking just through observation. And her whole thing with water went way beyond just drinking it. She was a huge pioneer of what she called hydrotherapy, using water on the outside of the body to treat things. And it's so fascinating because you can see the echo of her ideas today. All those trendy cold plunges that athletes and biohackers are doing to reset their nervous systems, that's just a modern take on the exact same principles she was teaching over 100 years ago. But according to the source material, this intense focus on water wasn't just about physical health. It was tied to a much deeper philosophy, a kind of spiritual parallel that gives the simple act of drinking a glass of water this really profound meaning. So the source brings up this key concept: living water. Now, within this belief system, that term is a metaphor. The idea is that just like physical water flushes out toxins from the body, this living water is seen as a kind of spiritual grace that's needed to cleanse the soul. And this philosophy completely reframes our little everyday choices, doesn't it? The decision to reach for a glass of pure water instead of a sugary soda is seen as way more than just a health choice. It's almost a symbolic act. You're choosing this steady, natural vitality over a temporary, artificial buzz, a choice for purity over just pure stimulation. All right, so we've talked about the history, the science, and the deeper philosophy. So what do we actually do with all this? Well, the source material offers a pretty practical way to put these ideas to the test for yourself. The source literally calls water the ultimate reset button. And here's why. Getting properly hydrated gives you all these physical perks. It flushes your system, can help clear up your skin, and so on. But it also suggests a mental benefit, that as you start to lose those cravings for artificial stimulants, it helps to clear what the source poetically calls the avenues of the soul, which allows for clearer thinking. So here it is, the call to action from the source. It's a super simple one-week experiment. The challenge is just to make pure water your main go-to drink. That's it. And then just observe. Just notice how your mood might level out, how that brain fog might start to lift, or how your cravings might begin to change. And I guess it all comes down to this one final thought. In our endless search for the next big thing, for these advanced, complicated answers to all our problems, the source material just asks us to stop and consider this one radical idea. What if the simplest, most basic choice we make every single day is also the most powerful one?